do that? Was it only to punish, or was it to help us come to a realization that there's got to be more than what's in this earth without God? That was the separation of God. On the day that you eat of this fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall surely die. Well, we certainly know that Adam and Eve didn't fall over, keel over dead, and go horizontal. They continued in their physical life. That word, die, really only means separation. And on that day that sin came, there was a separation between God and man. And if God is all wise, then there was a reason why on the outside of the Garden of Eden, until we're ready, that there were difficulties put in our way. We, as humans, try to alleviate those difficulties, usually in all the wrong ways. We take some good gift of God and we pervert it. Like the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not money. We take the sexual relation between a man and a woman and we pervert it. Anything that God has given us to be for our good, we ruin. So unless we think we're smarter than God, let's go back to Him and ask, why would He do that? And as we look at Ryan today, we have to ask, why isn't Ryan just angry with God? Why doesn't Ryan walk away from God? Why doesn't Ryan, like Job, be convinced to curse God and give up and try to fill it with all of these other kinds of things? Well, as we talked to Ryan, he was trying to fill it with all those other things before his tragic accident. He was living that life, an intelligent, wonderful, good-looking young man, following the everyday dreams, thinking that he was immortal, as he says. And so we have to ask ourselves, in the wisdom of God, why do troubles come into our lives? And I think it's because God is calling us away from those things that are like drugs. And I'm not talking about just drugs. They are certainly one thing, but they're like drugs because they numb us from the reality of the pain that we have when we find out that the first 1,000 isn't good enough, it takes 2,000. That 2,000 needs to become 5. Pretty soon 5 needs to be 100,000, and 100,000 needs to be 1,000,000. And we're not happy because there's never enough, and we're not satisfied. And so when we fill it with all of these things, we're not satisfied. And we try to live our lives that way. Satan, I believe, at times, and most of the time, is not there to hurt and injure you in any kind of way. He would rather have you drugged. He would rather have you whistling a happy tune and going to meet him in the end, oblivious to the spiritual truth, that there is something far greater that we can only come to through spiritual eyes. Now, God does do it with many people very gently. As we get a little older, we soon learn that we're not immortal. We add up the years. When we hit 50, we doubt that we'll live to be 100, and we wouldn't dare call it middle age. It sneaks up on us. We say, what is this all about? And then we ask the questions, where do we come from? Who do we owe all this to? And is there something more that God has promised for us? There's got to be more. Because you can't even spend the money. The drugs have maybe taken you too far down. The excitement in life and visiting many places is unfulfilling. God did it for Adam and Eve and all of the rest of us who would follow. But for a reason. To bring us back to Him. The story of the prodigal son. The son leaves, and until he's in the worst of shape, he doesn't desire to come back. And if we're having a grand old time out there playing in the world's playground, we won't come back to God. And so whether it's through old age, whether it's through disease and troubles, whether it's through whispering into our ear from a grandmother, even at an early age that we come to that knowledge, God has to sometimes deal with us. In his providence, he does those things. We would ask, wouldn't it be great if Ryan was totally healed, and yet he wouldn't walk a different path knowing what he knows now? That's an incredible, incredible statement. And so ask yourself this question: who's been wanting you happy in this world? It's not the one that wants you fulfilled throughout eternity. And so lean towards the one who would be willing to teach you, even in your difficulties, that there's so much more beyond this grave, beyond this world. And take the Spirit of God, which obviously rests in Ryan Kraft, and have him change your life, that in the midst of your problems, you too can have joy. Well, we want to thank Ryan Kraft for coming to our studios and presenting his testimony, because everything that Ryan does is certainly a chore or a difficulty, but he seems to do it with great joy. In talking with Ryan, as we didn't get on the show today, we found out that he graduated from the University of Michigan with a degree in psychology with a 4.0 average. Certainly a testimony to anyone, let alone through some of the tribulations that Ryan has gone through. He has indeed stepped out in the ministry, and you can check that out on the World Wide Web at the address below, and just to see what Ryan and God is doing through his life. Once again, let's give a big thanks to Ryan Kraft.